So welcome everybody. My name is Arjun, producer, recordist, and mix engineer sitting here in beautiful Grande Prairie, Alberta, which is my hometown. Recording at the legendary Better Than Fred's bar venue, purveyors of fine barbecue. So first of all, thank you for checking this out. Please hit subscribe and smash that little bell if you haven't already to stay updated. If you're watching this on my Facebook page, then please hit like, share if you want. That's totally fine. So welcome to another episode of Hometown Hustle, a series of unedited conversations between myself and some of my dear friends instrumental in the art and music scene in the Peace region in the early 2000s when I was coming up. This is specifically about my artistic journey and the scene and the people who helped really me to get where I am today. So today I am chatting with my good pal, Justin. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to be here, man.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Appreciate it. When did we meet? I can't even remember. It's like, you know.
Oh, yeah, years
those,
and years.
Those early 2000s that I was just mentioning.
I want to say that it was like probably at like a Howlers show, probably.
Got it. Last episode that I taped, Brandon and I were talking about that, like the scene at Howlers. Again, I have no idea what it's like right now, but at that time, it's like, I feel like they hosted open mics.
Yeah.
They had bands in all the time.
Yeah.
There were a few sort of major concerts going on throughout the years.
Yeah, the open mics there, I thought were like, you know, they were always an attraction to me. They were fun to get to. Great place to display your art, we'll say.
Totally. And I mean, when you're coming up, that's the kind of place that you want to be not very good doing what you're doing at.
Yeah,
right?
You felt, because you're at that location, you felt like you were doing something more significant than just jamming with your friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because you're like, well, you're doing it in an institution now.
Of course.
You're amongst these learned people.
Oh, yeah, serious business. That's great.
Yeah.
So I'd mentioned this just a little while ago, and this came up again in the chat with Brandon, but one of my early memories of anything musical in town was when I first got to Grande Prairie. The radio was on, and, you know, what was it called? Sun FM at the time? Sun FM, there was an ad saying, you know, back this weekend at Albano's, which is a restaurant, I forget where it was, Bella Bella, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if they played a clip of some of your music at the time, but I feel like they did. Maybe it was just a board tape or something. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's a good place to start.
Sure.
I don't know when that would have been, 2000, 2001, maybe?
Yeah, like, my apologies, because my little bit of a blur in those years,
No
but
worries.
it was definitely in the early 2000s. Yeah, that was a wonderful show. That one was it was a good little place that we had discovered, and very very good artists came out of that. I felt like Andrew Scott and Kaylee, right? So
right. So real quick, the lineup you mentioned was so of course there was yourself, Kaylee Cardinal, who we talked about a couple episodes ago, Andrew Scott, another really good musician.
Yeah, right.
And then on bass, I remember when Jabin was playing with you guys, but before that it was your brother, correct?
Well, I think they were at the same time.
Oh, at the same
simultaneous,
time?
Yeah. Jabin was always bass. He was always laying the bass.
Got it.
Jeremy was, I think he kind of had a part to do in facilitating the whole thing with like pitching it, I think, in the beginning too, because he was just kind of up working for the summer, you know, and it was like, hey, we should all find a place to jam. And then I don't know where it all came from. I think it had, the Kaylee was a part of that. They might have a better understanding of it than I did. But as far as I can remember, it was like, hey, there's this place that will pay us to play there, or we'll get like free meals or drinks or something.
It's a big deal.
An excuse for us to go play. And we could probably make some money at it. You know, it'd be a full-time gig kind of thing. And it was one of those milestones that you hit where you're like, hey, we could do this, right? So
totally.
We then, I don't know who recruited who, but the other lineup was, as you say, Kaylee, Andrew, Jabin, myself, and Jeremy was kind of intermittent. He'd come in and out a little bit here and there. And then there was countless other musicians that would just kind of, you know, showcase for a night, or even the openers. I think it was like Rubber Johnson or something like that.
Right. Who was Rubber Johnson? Who was that?
Like Sean Thompson, Ken.
Oh my gosh.
What's his last name? Ken.
Orr.
Yeah. And
Henry?
Yes. I don't know if Henry ever played anything, though. Did he? Is he?
Because Henry's a bassist, but I don't remember if Henry played. Again, a couple episodes ago, I was struggling to remember the name
Matt
of
Boucher?
Matt Boucher.
Matt
he
Boucher.
was playing bass.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was struggling to remember what those guys were called because they were Notch for a while.
There was another gentleman
and then a
there.
couple of other names, but that's right.
There was one more guy, and he was the singer.
Oh, really?
Glasses.
Brian Roussel, Dave Roussel. Was it a Roussel?
Dave, I think I don't know their last names. Right? I think his name is Dave though.
Okay, gotcha.
It could be him.
Okay.
Yeah. If I seen him, I'd be able to identify him. But
got it.
I can't remember his name.
Interesting.
That just be
Robert Johnson. That's right.
Yeah.
Did you guys play together at Bella Bella?
No, they were just like, hey, can we come play with you guys? You know, yeah, you guys totally come. So then they came up and they'd play a set, and then we'd close the night out, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was always good. Yeah. They had felt very exposed and raw art when they played. Right. You know, it was very it was good. Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Those were some great years.
Absolutely.
And they would always give us free dinner and drinks, and we'd get them so drunk in that place.
Right,
you know?
right.
No, what was her name? Kaylee would know these names. I don't know the names very well, but
like the owners or something.
Yeah, the owners. Yeah, and they just loved it. You know, we had all. I think a good part of it too was the fact that Kaylee could hit so many different genres with excellence. Yeah, you know, like she could play like the jazzy type. Yeah. You know, like the nice lounge type music, right? And then she could take it oldies, or she could play it new. She could. But one thing you could guarantee. Vocals were always on key.
Absolutely.
That was the best thing about playing with Kaylee. It's
Definitely.
Like, it was all the onus was on us to not fall apart because the vocals
course.
were always deadly. Right?
If anything went wrong, people wouldn't be like, well, what's up with this band? You know, the vocalist is so good.
Didn't matter where he played. It was like, yo, you guys sounded great. It's like, yes, that's Kaylee. That's Kaylee, man.
That's right. That's one thing I remember.
Powerhouse.
I don't know when I would have seen some combination of you guys at that point in time, but no matter what it was, Kaylee was always so good. I mean, she was always not just like in terms of pitch, but in terms of delivery, emotion, drawing people in. She was
performance maturity.
Performance, exactly. There, yes, technique. She was a very compelling artist at that time as well. Yeah. That's amazing. How did that band come together? Bella Bella, that is.
So I think that was like that. That is kind of like the start of it there.
Got it.
And then we kind of realized that like, we could build our repertoire there because we had a steady place to stack songs on top of songs. And we maybe only started with 8 or 9 songs, but by the time we were out of there, we had 30 covers and 12 originals or something, and some really good ones. Like I still got them in my mind now. Like they're great tracks back in the day. And Andrew was he was very much a music smith, so to speak. Like he could write and structure very well, and between him and Kaylee, they would have a very good writing like they were just they just had it dialed in together really well. Cool. And Jabin was very funky, and I was very locked in with him because he's a brother of mine. So when the rhythm section met the vocal section and the music section, it was just a nice harmony. So the band actually did really well. It went on to do lots of things. We opened up for lots of cool people like Dr. Hook and
I didn't know that.
Like some bigger events, right?
Yeah.
Playing the Corral and playing with big names that you thought would change your life. Like you think that these shows were just gonna
being in Grande Prairie
change your life.
They show up and they're like, these guys are great. Let's come on the road now.
You had your token moment with whoever it was that was in that band, and they wow, you guys are excellent, and so on and so forth. And then it was just,
of course.
But then it inspired us to keep that ball rolling. Yeah. So Bella Bella did lots of great things for a number of years. We recorded in Edmonton at the Black Box Studios once.
Okay,
that was a cool experience. It was like one of my first experiences going to the studios. So that was really good. But so
who was it got the Black Box? Steve something, right?
First name is 100% Steve, but I don't remember his last name.
I don't recall.
Just information I don't store.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, that's the funny thing about a lot of this information. It's now that we talk about it, these little things come up. But why in the last 20 years would one remember something like that? I don't know. But I remember the Black Box was a spot that a few bands went. Like they kind of made the pilgrimage to Edmonton and recorded there. Yeah. Maybe that's why I remember it because didn't you guys go record Prevail-wise, maybe, or no?
No, we were doing most of that stuff in our own camp.
Okay.
And that's kind of like the birth of the whole, later in our engagements.
Yeah.
But like it all kind of birthed from that because it was like we needed to put time in, and none of us could afford the time anywhere.
Yeah.
So the only way we're gonna find these chops is to create them for ourselves.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
You had to create the opportunity and then play on it for a while. And
man.
a lot of great things came from that methodology, but progress was slow.
Yeah.
And
of course,
quality of work was slow.
Totally. I mean, you kind of have like a safe space, should we say, to like stumble as much as you need to.
Do a lot of reading.
Absolutely.
Being a hermit for a long time.
Try do something the wrong way for a while, and then somebody's like, "Hey, why don't you do it this way?" Yeah. Oh, it's like 12 times quicker, and okay.
Right. Yeah. But the only place that Prevail ever recorded was there. I think I moved.
Okay.
I don't think we ever did anything beyond the Tonefield studio kind of thing.
Got it.
But we did go down and solicit. Once we were solicited from the same guy who took up Nickelback and Earl's band. White Mouth Mason. Carson Cole.
Right.
Yeah. And the Chicken Coop. So they approached us one time and they're like, "Man, you guys are we want you on our label," something like this. And we're like, "Oh, we'll come and check it out." And we all, like you said, made the pilgrimage down to Hannah area, Alberta, where like
Speaking
literally
of Nickelback, that's
where
the
Nickelback
spot.
is from. And they had a lot to do with Nickelback too, like in the early years of Nickelback.
Yep.
And we went down there, met with them all, and I just don't think that the boys are really feeling that place, and it just didn't really vibe really great. Like Carson seemed like he was pitching a good game, but even when I asked Sean Verald from Widemouth, I was like, "So what do you think?" Because we'd hang out a little bit when he'd come to town, and that was like a staple moment in my life, of course. But I would ask him, like, "Hey, what's your take on?" And he was like, "Well, you gotta." He'll open some doors for you, but you got to be careful.
Of course.
And I was like, well, I felt that was the way it was with everything. So
got it.
But
interesting
Prevail stuff.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Cool. Jumping back to Bella Bella. How old were all of you at the time? Like, were you guys all like 19, 20, 21?
Just bar age.
Okay.
Like literally 18.
Right.
Yeah. I think I was the younger one. I think of the group. I believe Kaylee's a year older than I am. Andrew is also a year older than I am.
Yeah. Yep.
Jabin, my brother, was older than I am. Jeremy, my older brother, is.
Yeah. Yep.
I was the baby. Yeah. Now that I think about it. So, I think I was just 18 actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So let's maybe go back a little ways from there. So that was like my recollection of you. I guess what would have been the first time I would have been aware of you and music and stuff like that. Tell me about getting into music. Because I know. Like, you grew up in Wetaskiwin. Were you born in Wetaskiwin and you grew up there as well?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was born in Wetaskiwin. It was a standard small town feel, You felt like you knew everybody. My perspective of it now is that it was very wholesome and good, like there was lots of sense of community but there was also like this element of danger because of just like, It's a conflict town somewhat between, the reservations that are close by and that town. So there was always this sense of conflict.
Yep.
But at the same time, there was also this major sense of camaraderie with the people in your community, as well as even like some of the gents that come off the res that would go to school in public school systems. Were the best of kind. Right. I made some very great relationships with friends over the years through that connection. But music wasn't really a big thing in Wetaskiwin, I felt like.
Got it.
And my first interaction with music was I got interested due to my family being a musical family. It was like the Partridge Family. Mom was a guitar player.
Right.
Dad was a closet guitar player. Mom was a singer-songwriter type. And then my older brother got led into guitar playing before I was of age. He's 2 years older than I am, so I was 5 when he started. And then he excelled at it. He's a very intellectual individual. He definitely excelled at anything regimented and something he can really engage himself into.
Yep.
So he turned into a very, very good structured guitar player at a very young age. And,
Got it.
I know as myself, I kind of admired him, and his advances in music. So when my mom asked me, she's like, Justin, do you want to play the drums? I was like, that's like not even worth asking, of course.
We were just talking about that. I'll make the point again that I feel like as a parent, drums are like, drums might be one of the things that you want your kids to get into the least because they're loud and kids hitting things is a classic. just a classic move. I mean, why wouldn't hitting things be the thing you want to do?
Right.
So when we were in Spain, Lakshmi was interested in drums. Whenever we'd go into music stores to buy guitar strings or something, she would find a drum set and just start bashing away, which is great. I mean, it's totally cool.
It's such a primal instrument.
It is, and it makes so much sense. It's just forget sort of putting your hand on a guitar and doing this and then this. Piano makes sense as well, but I mean, just doing this and going,
just like everybody's a musician when they started drumming.
Absolutely. So that's, I mean, again, it's amazing of your mom to get you into.
I think that secretly my mom wanted us to be the Hanson group, the Hanson Brothers.
Of course.
So, but I mean, best intentions.
Yeah. You have two brothers, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Younger Jared, older Jeremy. Right. But Jabin was also my brother because he was a foster brother. Yeah. And so there was the four of us. And Jabin got into bass at the same time that Jeremy got into guitar. So then it was like, that thing going on. And then and then when I became 7, she found a drum kit in a pawn shop. Yep. Like, it's like duct tape over the bass drum and the biggest piece of crap you ever seen in your life. Right. Like, I'm not even sure if it had, like, the cymbals were all bent and warped and just, it was atrocious. And we bring it home, we put this thing together, and it was just barely standing there on its own. And I grabbed the closest chair possible, and you're like so underwhelmed. Just paper bags, right? And I was like, but Mom's like, Justin, do you want to take lessons in drums? And I was like, absolutely, I want to learn how to play drums, right?
Cool. Yeah.
So that's where I met my first teacher in drumming, which his name is David Berzan. Okay. Actually, I believe he's up in this region.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah, I think he still plays actually in the community too. I'm not 100% on that, but my brother had sourced him out not very long ago, a few years back. But anyway, so David Berzan used to play at the school there in the music room, and he would bring all his students in where his kit was all set up. He had just this gorgeous kit. So at 7 years old, I'm just this little guy.
Oh my gosh.
And he got this massive kit to play on. And, he started out with just like, the basic beats, and then there was a kid that was ahead of me in lessons. His name was Ted Reynolds. He's a good friend of mine. He actually flies airplanes for Red Bull.
Oh, cool.
Isn't that the craziest thing now?
Red Bull?
Like race planes.
Yeah.
He's crazy. Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I used to always think like, man, he's good.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, he sounds so awesome. And then I would be playing and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm playing good now too. So it would inspire me to play better. Absolutely. Just hearing him as I approached my lesson, right? Yep. We're the same age and so on. And it was like almost this camaraderie, this is rivalry, but there was no rivalry because we were friends the entire time. But it's like me in the inside, I was like, I gotta be a better drummer than Ted. Like,
totally.
You gotta be a better drummer than me. But anyway, so, because I don't know why, but like for some reason drumming, it seems like always has to have this element of, rivalry between drummers. It's weird how that is always the case with drumming. It's like Lars versus Joey Jordison, or you know what I mean? It's like Vinnie Paul versus whoever. It's like always this versus. It's like, it always started with a drum off of Buddy Rich and Animal on the
that is so good.
The night show or whatever it was. With, I don't know who the host of that show was, but that's one of the things that comes to mind. But anyway, so I did lessons there, and I did lessons for 7 years steady, the whole time. So it was kind of cool because I started getting good at drumming in those lessons, but I was still 7, 8, 9 years old.
That's amazing.
And I was getting really good at drumming because I'd already been like consistently playing and studying the kit for a number of years. So then when we entered into grade school, and like I'm in grade 7, I started playing with the grade 10 band, and they'd always want to do these fun little songs, and I got to play the whole drum kit all the time. And parents would always love it at the Christmas concerts and that kind of thing. Right? It was just my own little head builder, but it was a hell of a good time. Yeah. So, and to allude back to parents hating drummers, my dad would always be like, he'd be like, if you're gonna play the damn drums, play songs that I listen to. Right? So then I was like, okay, I can handle that. Yeah. So then he's like, here's some Creedence. Here's some, Boston. Or like AC/DC, or like just like, Alabama. So I'm up in my room blasting that stuff and just learning those songs because I can still play and I can enjoy it. We had a larger house. It was an old house, but it was a nice house, and it was lots of separation between the rooms and stuff.
Okay.
So it really eased that a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, I just play. Yeah. And nobody really even knew that I was a drummer outside of Christmas concerts.
Got it.
You know what I mean? Because none of my friends were musicians. Actually, we're all skater kids.
Right, okay.
We're all skateboarders. And I was like this closet drummer.
Of course.
Like had this habit of drumming nobody ever knew about.
So fun. It makes sense, though. I mean, like at that age when you're in school, I mean, it doesn't even have to be that, maybe in high school, maybe even in college or whatever. Everyone kind of finds a certain niche, right?
Yeah.
You become this kind of person, like, oh, those people are jocks. Those people are stoners.
Right. You just
These people are the skaters. Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, part of it is that if that's your thing at that point in time, then of course your primary identity is that, well, I'm a skater, obviously.
Yeah.
And also I might play drums.
Yeah, and I do this thing that nobody knows about. And then it was funny because when I would pull that out, it was almost like my parlor trick. People were like, what the hell, man? You're like a wicked drummer.
Totally.
Where the hell did that come from?
Of course.
Like people would know me for a year before they ever knew that I drum, and they'd come over to my house for some reason, and me and Jeremy would be like jamming out.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
And Jamie would just be jamming out. Like, what the hell? You guys are all awesome musicians. Like, what the hell?
Right.
The Partridge Family kind
That's
of thing
amazing. That was your, anyway, here's Wonderwall kind of moment. Like,
that's great. Right, yeah. And we were playing lots of some live. Jeremy was big into live then. And
what a great band.
Yeah, and the Headstones.
Awesome.
And what other one's good? Bon Jovi. My brother was the biggest Bon Jovi fan.
Yeah.
It is so terrible. To this day, we call him John Bon Jeremy.
No way.
Because he just loves Bon Jovi so much.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's really good, though.
I forget. Who was the brother that was at the party? Was that Jared or Jeremy?
Jared. Yeah.
Jared, that's
Bass
right.
player, yeah.
Jeremy the one who was like into making movies for a while?
Yes.
Yeah,
he was a university graduate of film studies.
Okay.
He moved to LA to pursue it.
I didn't know that. Okay.
He spent many years there. Him and his wife. She was and this is crazy. She was in I believe the ER.
Okay.
In LA.
Wow.
For years, just like she would always have
That's
the
a heck of
craziest.
a,
like you got this stress.
Serious stuff, man.
She can sustain some serious amount of stress, and she went from that place to they did film there, or he tried and he engaged in as much as he could to try and get into the film industry there as much as he could. He made a cartoon. He ended up coming back to GP to film the score of that movie. We scored that movie in my studio. It's called Zombre.
I remember that.
Yeah, do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember talking about that. Yeah.
But anyway, he ended up going to. He lived in LA and then he came to Vancouver.
Okay.
Lived there for a while. Then he's back in Wetaskiwin now.
Got it. And he's a teacher, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Teacher.
Got it.
He's actually teaching on the reserve.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, he loves it. I think that he takes it from a perspective of like a serious job to do, and which is I respect actually.
And that's the best way to approach something like that, especially. I mean, you're educating people. You're providing education and instruction that people will carry forward for the rest of their lives. So I mean, there's I'm like losing my words. There's a reason why movies like Dead Poet Society exist. That there's that like that teacher archetype. That changes everyone's lives. I mean, there's the power to do that. So that's really cool.
I think that if we asked him to, he would allude to that very same thing. Is that he's had some teachers in his life that that he could literally pinpoint the moment that things changed for him, and that would come down to one or two teachers that I know of. That he has mentioned before. So I think he feels very strongly about teaching. But so back to what we're talking about there. So people would come over and see us jam, right? And that I think is what kept music alive, because in the town that we were playing, there wasn't many people that were playing, but us as a family would play together.
Got it.
And then later into the years of 13 and the angst years, the 14, that's when like my friends are like, hey, I'm going to start playing these super sad songs on the guitar, because it's all Nirvana and Offspring and all this was all coming out, and I'm sitting there trashing away on Nirvana tracks and Offspring tracks and Metallica and so on, and I was a pretty big Lars fan, I think with the true inspiration of music came from me, like the harder music, was I had a paper route, and I had paper route religiously. I had just delivered papers for years, like from like a very young age. I had a paper route because there was no such thing as allowance in our house. If you wanted money, you better go get it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Dad said, I'm never giving you nothing. I'll give you opportunity, right? So I got a paper route. My older brother had a paper route, so I was allowed to have a paper route because he was kind of,
of course,
to oversee me while I was doing mine. And then he eventually gave up his, and I took over his route, and I had his big route. But I was collecting money for the paper. Like you used to have to go around and knock on door to door and collect the money for the paper. Right. And I remember like there's this hardcore like cliche 80s rocker guy, like Trans Am in the driveway type guy, right? On the end of the street. And I remember knocking on his door, and I'm like bang, and I was like, collections, you know, I need to get the money, you know, like pay up, you know. And he's like, oh man, and he just looked like he just woke up off the couch, like he'd been drinking all day or something. He's like, oh man, I don't have the money. And I'm like, you know, I felt like this isn't for an 8-year-old kid. I shouldn't have to tell you to pay your damn bills.
Exactly.
And he's like, but hold on. So then he runs back in the house, right? And I'm just like, okay, this is gonna be good. And he comes back out, and he's holding a tape. And he's like, I don't have any money, but I just picked up this tape today. He's like, and I'll give you this. And I was like, I looked at it and said, Justice for All.
Nice.
Right? And I was like, my mom would hate me for having this.
I'll take it.
I'll take that, So then I took it, and
cool.
Like when you can talk about teachers changing your life, that album. I put that at home. I was like, what the? I never knew anything like this existed.
Especially the way that album starts, right? I mean, oh my gosh.
It's like
what's happening? What are these backwards things, you know?
Epic.
And then when that riff hits,
that album changed my life right there. And I was just like, and I'd already been drumming. And I was like, drumming to like, you know, this song on whatever movie was famous at the time. I think it was Ghost, and it was like
you know, Righteous Brothers. The
song Ghost with Patrick Swayze and like
Unchained Melody.
Like whatever songs are in there. Like, I just remember it. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's the first song I ever learned. And so my drum teacher was just kind of a nerdy guy, right? But anyway, so he would never give me that opportunity to listen to that kind of stuff, and I never hear it. So anyway, so I'd already been drumming. When I heard that, I was just like, oh my God. So then from that day forward, it was like I was in the Lars camp. Right. There was like the Megadave camp and the Metallica camp. And I was like, you guys are losers. Metallica is way better than Megadeth. And it was like this rivalry between the two. And,
100%.
You know, that's where I ended up. And it was like Metallica for years. Just like, especially like learning all of the Justice for All album. Like that probably took me 8 years to learn that album.
Man. Of course.
From like 8 to 16.
Right.
Before I could like say I could play every track on this except for Dyer's Eve.
Dyer's Eve.
Because that's just insane for me at that age. Like, that's like even before double kick was a thing. You know, it felt like Hot for Teacher was the most hardcore double kick riff.
Totally.
Until Dyer's Eve came along. And everyone's just like, what? But so that album was that changed my life. I suppose that was the main music, you know, milestone for me.
Got it. You know. And again, I mean, that's, you know, doing that kind of thing, you know, committing to learning an album front to back to be able to pull it off. Like that entire process is an education in itself, you know, and it takes on like a different shape and a different meaning depending on how old you are or and what level of playing you're at. You know, there are times when you're just learning a beat. You know, you can play the different beats in the song. You can't execute them perfectly, but you can play the beats, and that's cool. Then you hit a level of, you know, something like being able to string everything together and maybe like make it through the song. And then after you think you've mastered it, you know, then you're at this level of execution, and then you look back and you think, oh man, I've got to restart this process because actually this is where it should be, and you kind of keep looping back.
And the old methodology was to just stack skills on top of skills. So there was like this never up until that point there was never this element of like emotional attachment to the music. So once I engaged into the Metallica realm, I was just like, you know, the music was dark. It was in the headphones as loud as it could be.
So
the lights were dimmed. And I'm just like smashing drums, right? And like I was in it, engaged in it, emotionally like attached to these beats. I was just kicking the drum as I was trying to kick through it, you know, like, you know, everyone's like Bob Rock interviews and everybody else like, you gotta hit them. You gotta hit the drums. My drum teacher's like, you gotta hit them. You know, and I was like, okay, I'm hitting them. And I'd already been playing for like a number of years, right? So like I was versed in these fills, and I was versed from a meter stick kind of perspective. Like, no, that's wrong, start over. Nope, that's wrong, start over. You're speeding up, you're slowing down. Like, you know, tap you on your shoulder, shut you down. Like, that's not what we're writing here. Start over, play it again. So my ability to attack music was at a more of a educational perspective than it was of like a leisure perspective. So I've always kind of kept that element in my playing. Actually, I study drums even to this day. I still study things. I'm not just out there blasting the skins. I'm like, okay, I'm going to dissect a song and then rebuild it back together up until the point where I can't, and then it sits at that level until that's how that whole album was, you know, replayed from my perspective, and I'm sure everybody has the same.
Totally. Yeah.
No matter what the instrument is.
Right.
But, so. Yeah.
Cool. Justice for All, man. Heck of a record.
Record.
Yeah. People nowadays in 2019, obviously people can gripe about Lars and Kirk and stuff all they want. But I mean, at that time, when you're of a certain age, when you're at a certain caliber of playing at a certain point in your sort of musical education, I mean, I remember doing the same thing with, for me, Master of Puppets is that record.
Right.
And I remember doing the same thing, and I had friends who did that with a bunch of records, a bunch of different bands, certain songs, but sitting down and saying, you know what, I'm going to execute this as well as this album. That's a heck of a thing, man. That's, there's so much value in that, no matter what it is that you do.
Yeah. It definitely bled off on my little brother too, because he wanted to be Kirk Hammett too.
Oh, right? Cool. Okay.
He learned like all the solos, and he was just, even when he started as a bass player, he just, when you listen to the music, you just end up defaulting to like, you got to learn these riffs because the music was so captivating, right? So.
Yeah. That's really cool, man. I didn't know that. So tell me about, I guess, the skater thing, and then the music thing, and then what did you do once you graduated? Like when you finished school?
I was separated between two cities, right? For my parents divorced, and and when I was about 13.
I see.
And then I mean, I was always viewed as a kid who didn't really, I was a bad kid, but I wasn't a bad kid. Like I knew what I was capable of.
Right.
I knew who I was as a person. I knew very strongly who I was as a person. I knew what I was capable of. I had lots of friends. Everybody had lots of friends, and lots of my friends did things that I didn't really want to participate with, and I never did. I actually kind of disassociated myself a lot of times from that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't disassociate from their friendship.
Yeah, of course.
They're still great dudes. It's just that I'm not going to do some of the things you guys do. And also, I should allude the fact that I'm quite a bit younger than most of my friends. I was kind of always mature for my age. So my friends are always like a year or two above me.
Right.
So like they're doing stuff that I was like, oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like
you
drank a whole 2-6. Man.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of being surrounded by kids your age, like attempting to do that, you see people out of your league, and you're like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah. So, Wetaskiwin was a very small little town, and there wasn't a whole lot of work there. And my dad was not having a good time. He was a red steel carpenter, and he was traveling around trying to do whatever jobs he can get in a struggling economy from the, government at the time. Right. And just like what had stemmed from that. And so he, Grande Prairie's the place to be. So he came up here and he started working here. So when I transitioned, I spent my first couple summers just coming up here to work.
Okay.
And then I met some friends around here. Nothing really musically too much, but mostly skateboarding. Group friends, which are actually still friends with today. Cool. A large amount of them, And then one or two seasons of that where I'd come up here, work all summer, and I'd go back home to live with mom for the school year. And again, just study drums. A small town, you don't really have much to do, so you just drum and skateboard. That's all I did, right? Wintertime was all drumming, skateboarding all summer, right? It was like the two things that kept me going, kept me out of trouble. Gotcha. I still found my fair share of trouble. It
happens, of course.
Everybody gets into it when they're that age, right?
Absolutely.
So, and then 16 came around, and the opportunity was for me to come up to GP and finish my grade. I did grade 10 in Wetaskiwin, and then I did grade 11 and 12 here. So it was nice because when I came into grade 11, I was just welcomed immediately. It was actually wonderful.
Cool.
Like, I just had all these friends right away. It was a wonderful time.
I understand.
And then I met up with Steve Schmiller and Tyler Logan, which is the very start of the Villains.
The Villains,
right?
And Steve is he's an artist in Toronto. That's that guy.
That's him. So Steve is an amazing artist in Toronto.
Yeah, and some of the stuff he showed me is, spectacular.
Incredible.
It's incredible. Absolutely.
I don't even know what to say about it. The guy's got more talent in like one ounce of his weight than I have demonstrated my entire life. Like, it's crazy.
Got it.
He is so good. Anyway, but back then he was even like, I remember in the school hallways, and he's like, "I hear you're a drummer."
Yes.
And he has like this 70s vibe to him, right? Back in those years, him and Tyler, and they were cool kids. Like, they were older than I was. They were in the grade 12, and they're like, "I hear you're a drummer." And I was like, "Yeah, I can drum. Yeah, you bet." And it's like, "Well, we should hang out. You should come out to the boiler room." And the boiler room was like, he had this farm just on the way to Wembley there, just over the first Richmond Hill. There's a farm out there where he's from, and there was this shack in the back 40 that he had like a wood heater in there, and then he just had it fully set up with all his gear. He had his own drum kit. He had him. I can't remember the other guys. Jason was the other guitar player. I can't remember his last name, but he was shred. Like these guys would shred like crazy. So anyway, we'd go out there to the boiler house and we'd jam, and it was like everything from, and it was awesome because I was introduced to great new music. Right. It's something I would never be exposed to, but early, really early System of the Down. So like the Spiders album,
dude, that record
album that was
so good.
But I'd never heard any of that before, and I was like, wow, this is groundbreaking. Yeah. And I don't think anybody else at that time was really listening to that, and I was surprised at it. And Dream Theater, like because he was just he was so next level, right? Like his art just knows no bounds. Yeah. And he was exposing himself to great music from all different kinds of musicians, right? So we played all kinds of songs out there, did some covers and a couple of originals, some fun stuff. And then we played our first show was the very first show I ever played was opening for 5440 at the Corral. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was 16. That's amazing. Right? They're like, okay, well you can come in and play the show, but you got to leave when you're done. And then leave, right? You got to get out of here. I was like, so lame, man. What a raw deal. But like, I'm in high school. I get to play with 5440. Man, that blew my mind, actually, for the most part.
And in 2019, it's, perhaps easy to forget like how popular that band was
back then.
They were huge. I remember moving to Canada, and there were a few bands, the Bigs, Big Wreck, Big Sugar, and a bunch of acts. But those bands were massive. I mean, they were like the bands on Much Music at the time. They had videos out, all that kind of stuff. Right. So that was your first ever live show.
Yeah, and it was cool because we got to go up to the green room. Yeah, and we're hanging out in the green room, and they come up, and I can't remember the exact turn of events, but we were all sitting around, and I was just thinking to myself, like, how do I just make sure I don't look like an ass, right? Of course, I don't want to be like this kid in the room, because I'm obviously the kid in the room. Totally. Right? But we were all kids. And I think they came up, and I think they had this element of like, these kids are cool. Let's go and inspire them. Man. It's almost like they're like, that's the best. We have a duty to inspire these kids to do more. Right. So they engaged with us a little bit and had a little conversation. And then we went down and played the show. And I remember I had to play an electric kit, which is like fundamentally the worst thing ever for a drummer, especially at that year. Yeah. Right? It's like, who plays electric kit live? Right. That's the lamest thing ever. I'm going to be mocked off this stage. Yeah. And I remember because the pedals had nothing that anchored them to the floor, right? They're like, oh, no way, because they're just that little controller or whatever. I got you. And so like the pedal kept skidding away as I'm playing, and I'm like, and we're like in the middle of New Orleans is sinking or something like that, and like the kick keeps. I'm like, Steve, pedals, and so Jabin recognizes because Jabin was also in that band. I should mention. Yeah. So Jabin's like, so he like comes running over and he puts his foot in front of the pedal. And like, that's awesome. The show is saved. That's right? It. So then we can jam.
Rhythm section locked in,
right? So then we played the heck out of that show. Like I played my heart out. I felt like it was just the most epic thing ever. I thought it was going to change my life, right? And then played the show. I remember I didn't want to leave. I was just like vibing off all the energy. I was so nervous before I played. I remember just butterflies in the stomach and so on, and it was great. And then go back to school the next day. It was like, what did you do last night? Yeah, I was playing at the bar. Yeah,
of course.
Being Mr. Joe
you
Cool.
Were in the, oh my gosh, no way.
It was wicked.
Of course.
And then we, I think the band name back then was like Skin Spinner. I think is what Steve wanted to call it. He's like, and he had this design of like, he had a whole concept and everything. Oh my gosh. Like, this is terrible.
Like pre-Game of Thrones, the flayed man. Yeah,
right.
I see.
I think my first. And my first ever seeing those two play, Tyler and Steve, was they did a talent show. In the high school. Okay. And they played War Pigs.
Come on, of course.
But Steve played the drums.
Oh no! Wait, Steve is guitar and vocals.
Guitar and vocals.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, it was super epic. Yeah. So anyway, we, as a band, we played the Boiler House. That's where we jammed was. We played as much as we could, and we'd put on shows. I mean, we played the Army and Navy once.
Oh, cool.
We had a big mosh pit. Some girl broke her leg in the mosh pit, and we're like, we felt like such rock stars.
Of course.
Somebody broke her leg in our mosh pit.
It's brutal.
We've officially made it.
That's right. Also, I don't want to get in trouble.
Right? Yeah. But and then the ambulance is there and everything. Yeah. And she was fine, I believe. And we all talked about it at school. I'm sure.
Right.
The following weeks.
Certainly.
It was an epic
school
moment.
Assembly. Like, listen. Got it.
So then, that band kept going for a little while, and then it just, I don't know, just fizzled away. I don't remember I don't know if I quit or if they kicked me out or something. I don't know. I don't remember what happened there. I just remember we didn't play anymore, and then they, I don't know how long. I think they played here still a little bit longer, and then they moved out to Calgary.
Oh, okay.
And that's where like the start of the Villains came from.
I remember when we, I don't know when, this would have been 2005 or 6 maybe.
Yeah.
I think they had just released a new record. I feel like they'd played in Grande Prairie, and
Down the river.
You kind of showed me. Yeah. You showed me that album, and we talked a little bit about that, but I didn't know much about any of that stuff at the time. But it was a heck of a record, man. A really interesting sound. Really did well that was the thing. Very, very interesting. It's clear that they're a band. Listening to that album at that time, it's like, well, this is the band that has a vision. Yeah. They've been doing this for a while, and they have an idea of who they are.
Oh, and Steven and Tyler, they threw everything they had at that. Like, I know that from a player's perspective, those guys were no slouches, and they would spend an immense amount of time just slaying. I remember Tyler's slapping the bass skills, man. He's got like the triplets, the finger picks, like all that stuff, like all those little nuances that are just so wonderful for a bass player. Like nobody ever plays. Yeah. You know, like he learned all that. It's beautiful. They just really threw everything out. And you know what? They were very calculated in their approach to projects. And they, I don't know if they were actually doing the storyboard, and the workflow.
Okay,
all that sort of stuff. But they were definitely had a way to keep things controlled and a proper flow, and there was just the sense of sophistication with the music.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I was always very, me and Steve are still great friends now. Yeah. We visit often. Actually, Tyler was in town. Last time he was in, I would chat with him. Steve stops by often when he comes to town. Yeah.
Amazing.
And we still converse often and engage in each other's art, and we always talk about, let's just get together and jam.
Right, of course.
Man. It's like, sure, we just get together and just, music flies and it's a good time,
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool, It was a good time. Those were good boys to play with. So.
Certainly. Aside from that gig at the Corral, did you guys play sort of other opening sets of that nature?
Nothing of that stature.
Okay.
I think that the Corral, I want to say that band only really lasted for like a year.
Okay.
Either two.
Yep.
And then there wasn't opportunity.
Right.
I don't think as much.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure why that was. I'm not sure. Like, I think I was always focused on the next thing, right? Always trying like, okay, well, the Steve thing, that was good. It was all, and I think it wasn't very much time in between that and the Bella Bella. I think that kind of segued nicely from playing with Steve and them. I think that's actually where Kaylee and those guys knew me from. And I was like, and Jabin, right? But then me and Jabin, like, we would jam with everybody. We didn't care. Like, we were a tight rhythm section and we were brothers. Yeah. So we're like, let's jam.
Bring it on. Absolutely.
Yeah, we go to open mics or whatever. We're like, rhythm section's tight. Let's go. Whoever wants to jam, right? Like, we often would end up at Howlers. And that's where kind of everybody kind of like, everybody kind of just, ended up there. And there was lots of, like, everybody was there. I mean, Renee in that camp, like, what's his name? Ian Hoff and that whole camp, like Mac Hasselfield.
Certain something, that whole crowd.
Yeah, that whole camp. And then, like, Calypso Garth.
Who's Calypso Garth?
And the Communists.
Who is that? What is this now? Tell me. What a great name.
I know, Calypso Garth and the Communists. So that's like the first times I got there. Yeah. And we were playing, and it was like, Mike Moman.
Yes.
He was big into that at the time too.
Okay.
There's some bands that come out of Peace River, like Pipe Dream and a couple other.
Okay.
And I was playing with some boys like Kirk Goodvin and Jared.
Okay.
And like we had like Max Grody, I think was the name of the song. It was just fun,
that was Max Grody.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
And we were playing like Pearl Jam and Temple of Dog and like all the grunge. We were just playing tons of grunge, right?
Of course. And
some punk.
Kirk and those guys, are they the same age as you or like a couple of years older?
I believe Kirk's a few years older than I am.
Okay, got it. There's the only reason I bring that up is because when I moved to town, there were folks of like a certain generation, and when you're that old, it's like, you're 20, they're 22, it makes a big, but what they're into musically and their influences are completely different,
right?
In the sense that I remember I always associated Kirk and those folks, even maybe Ken and those guys, with a certain sort of age bracket of people who were, they were into like Nirvana and Alice in Chains, when
More
those
grunge.
bands were active, when the scene was like big all over. And then, I would have been a couple of years too young for that. So I was into something else.
Right.
But as soon as you brought that up, I just remember thinking, a note from like the last time I chatted with Brandon about this, like all of these folks have a certain thing in common, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
I see.
Like we had a lot of fun there because Howlers was a great place that you could just go and just have, you just book your slot and you're out and you're playing, right? And everybody was there. Like, everybody wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And, and it lasted for a number of years that this all went down. And that's kind of where Kaylee and Andrew and myself and Jabin and like we ended up, there was just like we did this for years, even with you and me. Like there's just always so many musicians that are like, how can we reorganize these guys to make a new band that was new and edgy and great music, and it was just all it was always like that, right?
Of course. And that's the thing about like I shouldn't say a town this size, but I mean a group of artists of this size. Maybe that's more of an accurate way to put it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows each other. Everyone knows how everyone complements each other.
Yeah.
And so when one thing falls apart, instantly, there's no vacuum. Instantly, you're just over here because that's the next spot that a person with your chops fits in, or your personality, or whatever. Which is a beautiful thing in a way, because we talked about that sort of that friendly competition. That where everyone pushes each other to play better initially. Or
there was
write
a really
better or
good
perform better or something. But at the same time, you can still mix it up with a new group of folks and get back to that again.
And there wasn't so much division as I want to say from a genre perspective.
Right.
It was more like everybody was music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like there wasn't. It was actually a really cool time, I think.
Absolutely.
And then back to the Calypso Garth.
Yeah, Calypso Garth.
So Calypso Garth was the communist. He was just like one dude who played guitar, and he played like Ring of Fire and some other tracks. But he was like a senior at college when we were all just getting out of high school, just coming up to
like
campus.
A cool dude.
Yeah, and we were like these little, still smell like diaper rash kids. He's like a veteran guitar player.
Of course.
And, Moment was always out there just blasting the punk, right? Those guys were epic back then.
Undermine Authority.
Right. I should also mention that back in the Spinner days, with Schmiller, there was like two other bands.
Okay.
And it was Mike Molman and that camp, and like those guys were good, right? They were great punk, and I was really a skater. Good. I was like, I like these guys because I was like, just watching. I can't remember his name.
Nathan
Olhauser. The drummer, Olhauser. I can't remember his first name now.
Okay.
But I looked up to him because I was like, fuck, that drummer's good.
Yeah.
He had chops. Like he could just play. His fills were fast. Like he was just punk though. Like just all punk all the time. Just like a computer. Just regimented, but deadly. Yeah. And he was good and he was fast and it was great.
And they had the vibe down.
Right.
I mean, they were like a punk band.
But there was another band that was equally in that. Okay. You're going to love this.
Okay.
It was Dustin Jones.
Oh, okay.
And their punk era.
Right.
They had this super punk thing going on. And it was like leather vests, spikies, dealies. Oh, and they were just like real raw punk. And they played it so well too, right? Yeah. And I only played with them one time. I think they lost their drummer for some reason. I was going to go drum with them. I played their set with them once or twice. And we never really clicked it off because I was more into like, I want much more melody in my playing. I always like so much more dynamic in the music than just like I've never been much of a blast guy. You've known that from me forever, right? Like,
I mean, I would say that you have those skills and you have like a skill set that allows you to do that. But also, I feel like you're a very musical and lyrical drummer.
Right.
If I may be.
I lose. Yeah, and I appreciate it. But I lose interest. In when it's just blah 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 blah. And I love it because as a drummer, when I want to just like get into my music, I'll throw on some Lamb of God or something.
Of course,
but like Lamb of God is still the exception because they're quite melodic still.
Totally.
Right.
So a lot of grooves.
Or like As I Lay Dying.
Yeah.
Epicness. And like the triplet kicks and the just music to my ears.
Of course.
Like it's creativity at its finest. Both those bands.
Absolutely. Do you remember going to this is a quick aside, but we went to see some show together. I don't know what the bill was, but it was a bunch of us metal players or whatever, GP music kind of cats. But Machine Head was one of the bands.
That's right. Yeah.
I remember you were talking about Dave McLean's drumming. I think you said something like, fundamentally, like, I understand that drummer.
Because we had similar characteristics to our playing. Like, he's playing the things that I play.
Right.
Where when I look at, what's his name?
Chris Adler?
Yeah. When I look at Chris Adler, and I'm just like, okay, that's very different.
Yeah,
But when I look at
Dave,
whatever his drummer, he was playing within the same wheelhouse as me.
Right.
So like and you hear that in the linear patterns, you hear that in the use of more like quads.
You're right.
And
exactly.
Quintuplets and using flow to get to tell your story as opposed to just blasting it out. Like he still does. Like
totally.
Adler will still use those things, but he uses them in a much different way.
The approach is completely different. Yeah.
And so I really connected with that drummer more so because I was like, oh, okay, well that's how, like, if you took what I do and you took it to the metal genre, this is kind of where where I think I would just naturally end up.
Got it.
Like, I mean, I could probably force myself into this box, but that's not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
My wheelhouse would be more of this guy, Machine Head type, you know. And I think that also stems from Machine Head being a much older band than you know, because they're kind of like they're growing into these genres as opposed to birthing from this genre.
That makes sense.
So
fascinating.
Yeah.
And you know, something to be said about, again, putting in the time to build your chops. And I'm just thinking about like artistic or music, musician fundamental kind of thing. Putting in the 10,000 hours or whatever, finding out who you are, right? And then, then that's your platform for moving forward.
And you build
know
upon
what you do. Exactly. I don't know why that stuck out, but that was...
I remember that show very well, because the awesome part of that show was that it was at Reds.
Yes.
And you get that perspective that you never get anywhere. You never get to get above the band, behind the drummer.
Because we were standing up in the way up in the corner, looking down, almost side stage, right
and
down.
And you could go around
band.
it. You could go find the other spot. So when Chris Adler was playing, I'm like right behind him,
observing. Yeah,
what's
absolutely.
this guy doing? You know? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fucking.
Which is such a funny, like, musical nerd kind of thing. It's like, you can be part of the audience and rock out, but then also on a sort of cerebral level, that is such an important thing to do to, be nerdy enough to want to do that. But then again, observe, looking down, seeing what his feet are doing. For me, seeing what certain guitarists are playing, like how do they fret that thing? How do they put that together? How do they sing and play that? Or what the band is doing. And watching like the interactions on stage. I mean, I know that I'm terrible for this.
Those gimmicks.
Of course. You're just like watching what they do, and you see things that they do, and you're like, oh, I totally know what's going on. He's doing this thing, and now this guy has to talk to that guy. Oh, not that anyone cares about this, but if you're a music nerd and a player, a performer, you kind of get these things.
Yeah. And you're secretly like building your own repertoire of like things you're gonna do in those situations.
Exactly.
I know when I would go watch these shows, I would always pick my seats off to the side.
I hear you.
Because as a drummer, you never get those perspectives because your kick's in the way, man. You know,
absolutely.
Like, and the front
person's in front of the thing.
So you never get that, right? Yep. So I'd always pick my seats off to the side so I can get a little better angles on the drummer, and before YouTube, how did you get these chops, right?
Absolutely.
You had to like figure them out the old school way.
Now there's, like a camera by someone's foot.
You get to see camera everything. Like you can dissect and reverse engineer anything you want.
Totally.
In a very short period. You can literally download and transpose the music.
100%.
Boom, hit for hit, right?
And can you imagine trying to figure that out back in the day, and then, finding out that like the drummer is like left-handed or something.
Right.
And you think, oh,
it's a left-hand
that's why
lead.
they would.
Yeah. I remember we were playing Sober.
Oh, yeah.
We were playing Sober with Prevail at, I don't remember where the show was. Oh, I think we were opening up for LA Guns. Yeah, like the most epic thing ever, right?
Heck
so we were opening up for LA Guns.
Yep.
I think that was LA Guns, or it was Billy, or else it was not Billy Talent, but the other one. We played Billy Talent in our set, but it was for, goddamn. Anyway, and we played Sober, and there was a drummer. I think it was, I don't know who it was actually, but somebody's like, "Oh, this guy." I was sitting beside a guy who knows you, and he said that you were playing Sober wrong. He said that the first fill was a left-handed lead, and you were playing a right-handed lead. And I'm like,
Whatever.
Does he know?
Don't
you talking about?
tell me
song's
anything.
hard enough as it is. Never mind. I'll just fake my way through it anyway.
Exactly.
It's all improv.
Why don't you try to do it? Just, see if you can do it better.
Shut up.
That stuff is so funny. I mean, just and obviously you're open to that,
yes.
but then at some point in time you're annoyed that somebody's telling you a thing.
Guaranteed, I go home and I'm like, left hand lead, eh? How do you do this?
Exactly.
So then you start like dissect it.
And then later that night, you got it. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey,
how you doing? No, we are. Wait, let's see. I feel like we probably got like a solid half hour worth of material. I think, just looking at my notes. Yeah. Grab a seat, hang out. No, we started a while. It's been like 40. It's been an hour.
I feel like we haven't even got into it yet.
I know.
That's what happens though, every time we chat.
Yeah,
right?
of course. But we got definitely a half an hour. What time is it? 8. Yeah, 8:12. That makes sense. Did you want to order some food and chill? I mean, you're welcome to sit right there if you want. Yeah. I have a tab at the bar. They know that we're recording and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to grab some food, grab a couple of drinks or whatever, grab it, come hang. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, sounds good. Okay.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right.
So, what was I saying?
So my aside took us away from you had talked about, we're talking about Calypso Garth, followed by Moman, and then the Joneses. Was Brent playing with Dustin in that band?
No, Brent wasn't there at that time. It was Sean McDonald.
Oh, of course. Did he play?
Was that with Undermine Authority? No, that was with Undermine Authority.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Sean McDonald. Okay.
I can't remember who it was.
Was Travis Colwell?
Not then.
No, not then.
No, because that's a little.
Yeah, that's later. That's right. That's interesting.
I can't remember who it was, but they were a force to be reckoned with. They've been punk as long as we've done anything.
Absolutely.
Those guys have been killing it.
Yep.
Like Reject Days and like Dustin and I have been friends for 25 years. It feels like.
Have you seen Dustin recently?
No, probably a year. Last time I
gotcha.
ran into him.
I ended up having coffee with him. I don't know, a few weeks ago, because we kind of saw each other at like the Starbucks that I end up at like every morning.
Right.
And it was one of those things we always say like, yeah, let's go to coffee. And then one day we got a coffee, and it was really good to chat with him because I've been away for so long, and so I've reconnected with like a bunch of people. But Dustin, for example, he was in Calgary,
right,
and then recently got back to town. So it was really good talking to him.
Yeah.
I should probably get him to come chat at one of these things.
Yeah, no really.
But okay, cool.
We had a little connection there. We employed him for a little while. He come and joined our camp for a bit and helped us build some stuff in town. And it was a pleasure having him. He was a great dude, man. A lot of respect for those guys. Like they've put their time in, man. They've definitely like slugged through it all. Yeah. And like punk, it was great for some years, and then it just kind of like it just receded a little bit, and people still love the genre, but it just doesn't get the light of day that it should have in over the years. But
I feel like it's a lot of these cycles in music, the time that a few years after the point that we were talking about, that was when punk and metal were both as big as they were going to be. Kill Switch were on the charts, they were on the radio, for example.
That was a big time for Prevail.
Totally. Oh, absolutely. And there were like a lot of all ages shows, and there were a lot of metal and a lot of punk bands. I'm sure it'll come back around. It's just one of those things.
That's right. Yeah. So that's where I met most of those guys. Actually, was back at the Howlers days.
Okay.
Which is a great time, and that's about the same time that we started playing Bella Bella like all the time. Okay. We were playing like 3 nights a week.
Yep.
We were opening stages that had never been played on before. Like I think we were the first band to hit Lion's Den. Like we had to rearrange their seating just to you guys have never had a band in here. Okay, well, let's put a band over there.
Right.
We bring and that's when I bought the PA system and started a production company.
Okay.
Right. So then I'm providing all the sound for everything and behind the scenes doing all that work. That was also kind of born of as a vehicle to bolster Kalin, because it's like we couldn't play half the venues that we wanted to play because nobody had a PA.
Right.
And GP Music wasn't really you could get them to do it, but it was expensive and it was hard to bar owners didn't want to deal with that.
Of course. Yep.
And that's where the original Sharks back in those days. It was Sharks. We all drank here. It was it's now Fred's, but we all drank here, and that's where that all kind of came from. And Pete and I had an agreement where I would provide all the sound and stuff for all of his bands, and then at the same time we'd be able to play here as much as we wanted, and That's kind of where it really all kind of took the next level.
Right.
That was kind of like after Howlers, and we were all just hammering out our stuff.
Yep.
Once the Sharks stage became available, that was like the place.
Right, because then you're sort of, you've left behind the, I don't want to say like childish things, but
the adolescence
but people
of the
your
open
age
stage.
and the safety net of, having all of your friends in the crowd at Howlers and the open mic vibe and being in familiar territory. Now you're playing for, for like a bar crowd.
Audience over there too.
Exactly. Now you're playing for people who have gone out for the night, who are at a bar, who want to drink. The last thing you want to do is put up with some kind of crappy band or something like that when they could listen to their favorite tunes or something.
And we took that very seriously.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I think that's like a very good, that's like a gauntlet that is important for people to go through, You really develop like not just confidence on stage, but I think like a sense of self-worth, like when somebody...
we made it.
Exactly.
We truly made it.
And also like when somebody is, you can tell when you're connecting with the audience, and then you can tell absolutely like 100% more when you don't connect with an audience. And then what do?
You learn.
You start playing you've got like an hour's worth of music and you start playing and the people just are having none of it.
Yeah.
But you have to finish. How do you do that?
The beauty of us in that scenario was it was Kaylee.
Of course.
So you always had that, the audience that always responded to Kaylee was always positive. I don't think at any given show ever there's ever been a negative moment that I could remember Kaylee and I going like, oh, I dreaded that. No, but like me and Kaylee were tight. We're still tight. Like she's practically my sister because of my brother-in-law or brother, right? Because so I'm Uncle Justin to Kaylin. So, and having that strong voice and a good song. Plus, Andrew was still in the game there back in those days, right? So we were playing, and we were very serious about stuff. Like we were trying to perfect what we were doing to a level of like we want to be taken seriously.
Totally.
We're charging good money for shows. We're providing professional sound reinforcement. The best that I could.
Of course.
School of Hard Knocks, but still, I did a lot of studying. And how do you do that? YouTube wasn't available again.
Of course.
So how do you do it? You go get the books. You study. You study. I was like, well, I don't have like I'm busy in an apprenticeship. I could not just like go to audio engineering school of sorts. So for me, the outlet was I need to just get the equipment so I can start learning what I'm reading because I'm reading it and I'm understanding it and I'm digesting the information, but I'm not getting any experience. So then I just purchased the equipment. And that was a lot labor of love. I had to work my butt off to get that gear. My parents didn't give me nothing. I worked and I just put the time in. I made the money, and then as soon as I approached the GP Music, Dave, and I'm like, Dave, you see the band playing, you see what we're up to, you know who I am as an individual. He was also a drummer, and we were friends. Like Dave and I would talk all the time and become friends. I'd ask him for advice even, like David White, like he was in that camp and Mike Monroe and those guys. I spent so much time with that music store. I was practically part of the furniture there.
Dude, this is a thing that I think Al and I talked about is that, that mentorship really, when you're a person who wants to play music and you want to do it or you're already doing it, you just become one of those people who spends time at the store. You don't go in to do anything other than like just, maybe look at equipment, see what's new, and then you just get drawn into conversation with whoever's working there, and it just, and you learn so much. And also, you go in and maybe you talk about, a person is young and you talk about some nonsense or something. They're like, listen, and let me fill you in on what's going on or whatever. And that's a beautiful thing, man.
And being allowed to walk in the back door felt like you were like,
you've made it. Like, listen.
Like, Staffen? And it was always Staffen for me, right? What's up, Staffen? It's like, yes, I am part of this now, So what I did is I asked Daryl. Yeah, it's Daryl.
Daryl
was the
Sweetnam. Yeah, exactly. And then Dave as well. Yeah, Dave, I got you.
Yeah. So Daryl, I asked him, like, hey man, like I'm playing all the time. I got this full-time gig at Sharks where I'm providing sound reinforcement almost every single weekend. I'll just go play those shows. I'll turn around and bring you all the money, because they were paying me good money. I was making good money with that. So then he's like, okay, Justin, I trust you. And I was already an apprentice with multiple years in the field, and I was pushing hard. And I was a strapping young lad trying to make my mark in the world. And he saw that in me, so he's like, okay, I'll let you have the gear. So he gave me like a $40,000 PA system.
Right.
You know, that's the most expensive thing I'd ever owned in my life.
Totally.
I never could even fathom that. And then I like the pressure that came with that too.
Of course.
It's like, oh my God, I'm actually responsible.
You got bills to pay. You got to pay things off.
So then, you know, Kaylee and the band, we were just playing all the time. And I was like, I got to get this gear paid off. And I know that I was kind of villainized a little bit in the band because I was like, when we play a show, I'd say, okay, well, if we charging $1,000 for the band, I need 500 of it for the PA.
Right.
The band can have the other 500.
Yep.
Right. And I was kind of like, well, what? You getting all the money? I was like, but I got to pay for this gear.
Well, plus you probably wouldn't have had that opportunity to play in that place without having a PA. That not only are you playing in the band, but you also provided and also run.
Right.
So forth and so on. I
understand. And you know what? They totally understood that, and that was totally fine. But I know it was a bone of contention.
Of course.
Still, you know, and it's like, well, not still, but you know what I mean?
I understand.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a bone of contention. But at the same, and they're like, and we're hoping you haul it around, like free labor. Like, come on, guys, we're all in this together.
Exactly.
And that's really what it was. It was like, you know, it was a great way for us to access stages that we would not normally be able to have access to.
Totally.
You know.
With the PA system, what are just a list? Like, what are some places that you guys played at?
So
Army, Navy,
Sharks. Like we'd always do all ages shows. That was the beauty of that thing, is that we could provide that music.
All ages shows,
and nobody was doing that, right? GP Music wasn't putting on those things. So I and Kaylee and like Sarah and like some of our old friends.
So who was Sarah? She was a person who moved to Vancouver.
That's right. And she's actually still works for Feldman. She's actually manages bands still.
Okay,
she was actually Headley's manager for years.
Got it.
You know, before everything else. I don't even know what she's doing now, but she's like she's a saint, that woman. She's honestly just a wonderful woman. Yeah. And anyway, so we would host these all ages shows. Even it was Prevail Days too, right? Because simultaneously Bella was kind of merged in, and we had the Prevail thing going on for a little bit of time. There was like some
overlap.
There's some overlap. I believe, I can't remember. Like this again. That's some lots of microdosing went on back then.
Sure.
We'll call it that.
I got you.
Macrodosing. Yep. Anyway.
But all ages shows.
Yeah.
I remember there being a strong all ages scene when I arrived. Before I was into the music scene here. Right. But definitely when I got into the music scene, as important as sort of bar shows were, or as numerous, I should say,
they were super important.
Oh yeah, and there were a ton of all ages shows. Yeah. And later, again, you kind of like follow the threads, and it leads back to like yourself. Yeah. And just a certain crew of people
that were putting them on. Yeah. And we would go out of our way for that because for two reasons. One, we could actually make our money back and get paid for what we're doing. And for two, we got to give these kids some exposure for good music. Yep. And the best part of all of that too was that these kids would just unleash on the floors. And they were just loving it. It's all ages.
Absolutely.
And we got young guys coming out who have, like, this is their exposure to the music scene. And, it just brought me back to another thought about the Compass downtown.
Right.
And Cade Henderson and Rocksmith.
Right.
Like, you can't not talk about Rocksmith,
of course.
Right?
No,
they were like, amazing.
Of course.
Right? For youngsters, they're just slaying Silverchair and like... They embodied that whole vibe.
Silverchair and like Big Wreck. Yeah. I feel like that was kind of their vibe.
Yeah. The later time was the Big Wreck. The earlier time was the
Silverchair.
You bet. And they were, simultaneously in the same crowd doing the same things as we were doing. But it was, I don't know why. Sorry, I didn't mean to tangent off to them.
No, it's all good. It makes sense because
they need to be noted within the time.
Totally. And I brought that up with Al a little bit because I got here after the C-Spot and Compass scene had died down.
Same with me.
So people would talk about that. But I only heard it secondhand. It was like the stuff of legend. Like, well, look, I mean, just like last year, this is what we were doing. We'd play at the spot. Everyone was there, it was packed, and the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I will gladly take a minute to extol the virtues and the importance of Cade and Rocksmith.
Yeah.
Cade, Anders, and Curtis.
That's right.
One of the first shows I saw in Howlers involved them. They were opening for, I don't know who, so like some other local bands or something. It was 3 or 4 or 5 bands playing at Howlers, and Rocksmith opened. And I remember Cade is like an adult now, like us. He's a grown-up. At the time, he was... I feel like he was about to go through a growth spurt because he was like a really short guy with like long hair.
Yeah.
And the nicest person. And me as a person observing music and not yet in the music scene, I kind of like saw all these people and thought, oh my God, it's that guy from that band. Wow. That kind of thing. And I remember Cade, he played like what was that, a PVT-60 guitar. and like a Mesa single rec, and his guitar tone was the best. It was so thick, but it was one of those things where when you push something like that hard, you don't get as much gain and sort of distortion as much as just like natural breakup, natural harmonics, and each note is just crystal clear. And so Cade was a player who, he had like really cool harmonic sensibility, and so when he'd play wide, lush chords, you'd hear every single note. And that with like Anders and Curtis backing him up, what a great band. They had
a trio.
It was a
That's
trio.
the best part of it all.
It was a trio, and they had a huge sound.
Yeah.
I mean, oh
and
my
all their friends
gosh.
are bolstering that so well.
Oh, absolutely.
They had a great following, and
which is great because the first time I saw them, it was one of those things. They hit the stage, and like 100 people were there to see them, and they were just up, just rocking out front. And Cade's voice at the time, he had that voice, man. It was like he maybe like 2 months later he would get a bit taller, but his voice was huge. It's one of those things. There's like a cognitive kind of dissonance. You're like, this person shouldn't sound like that, but they do. But
voice didn't match the stature.
Yeah, totally. But what an incredible band.
They killed it, man. They were great players.
They
were. I feel like they were all kind of in the same camp as myself, as where they were playing at young ages and kind of learned their craft young enough so they could start to embellish on it within those years where everybody else was just starting to pick up instruments, and we're all like already got our mojo figured out.
Exactly.
A little bit.
You guys are working on the next level of being musicians.
I felt like I definitely associated with that group a little bit for that
kindred spirits.
Yes, and his sister. I think he has sisters. I think they're all. I'm
not sure.
I'm not sure.
Okay,
but I mean, there was a bunch of girls.
Okay.
I believe it was Kate's sister. I want to say they'd also had some bands, and they were always playing along. I can't remember the names, like the Daisies or something like that. It was something super like hippie, super hippie, flowery type band, but they were awesome.
Yeah.
That's the thing was that they were awesome. Folk music,
Of course.
That was actually my real first good introduction to folk music. It was back in those years with Emily Booth.
Oh my gosh!
Right?
We can't.
She was a big part of it.
Emily,
she was the manager of Bella Bella.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was the one who was fighting for us, dealing with asshole bar owners. She'd be the one like nope, you gotta pay. You gotta
that's
pay,
fantastic.
Yeah,
well,
she was
again,
awesome.
I mean, the Booth clan is like such a wonderful group of artists as well. Absolutely, one of the best things I remember. Would be at some of those shows, Kaylee, Julie, and Emily would sing and harmonize together. Yeah, and that's just one of the most glorious sounds that you'll ever hear. It's amazing, man.
Back in those days,
good.
And back in those days when we were playing, like Emily, Kaylee just got everybody together. It's just her music just bring everybody together. And like I remember Bevan would always just be like watching the kid.
Of course.
And he'd always be like, 'cause he was quite a bit younger than us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he was always like eyes on the drummer.
100%.
And like me and him were always good friends for that reason. And I know that I taught him some things back in the day. And just like how Stacey Arbo, when I was a little kid, Stacey was playing.
Stacey,
and I'd be like, oh man, triplets, man, it blew my mind. Never heard triplets, that kind of thing, right? So I remember Bevan always be there, and I'd be like, right on, Bevan. You're gonna be a good musician when you're older, because he was just getting into drumming. And he was super inspired.
100%.
So it was really cool. And super cool.
And look at him now. I mean, what an incredible, just a musician, producer.
He sure looks like his father, eh?
He does. The thicker his beard gets, absolutely. Oh my gosh. What a wonderful bunch of humans, man.
That's exactly how you call them out. Yeah, what a beautiful bunch of humans.
That's so much, dude. That's so much fun. Man, okay.
So we're at the Sharks stage.
So now we're getting to the Sharks. So Sharks. So we are recording here at Better Than Fred's. Before Better Than Fred's became known as Better Than Fred's, it was called Sharks, and it was owned and run by Peter Shields, who gave my band No One's Alone the opportunity to play a few times. And so playing here when this place was Sharks was that after we played Howlers, this was one of the next steps, as well as did you guys play BJ's?
Yes.
Okay. So we got to talk about BJ's. Aside from John nowadays, of course, Pete Shields back in the day, but also Byron and Graham Johnson too. Those two guys, old school, just old school, wonderful cats. Just very interesting characters. Yeah. And as old school as they were, it's amazing the kind of opportunities that we all as musicians and bands playing all the different kinds of music that we did, we all got shots to play at BJ's, like we would open for bands, we'd play all night kind of sets.
And your guys' music was more catered to that bar, so more so than ours was. Like I know Kaylee's was, but they never gave, like, I'm not sure if Kaylee ever actually played BJ's stage. I think so. I want to say, like, we played so many damn shows. I should also mention that Howlers, I believe, like we said it. That's where you and I first, I think, met. Was there, and we have to mention Cato Landsgaard,
of course,
right,
totally.
and like the No One's Alone thing, and that was like, that was like the thing.
Yeah,
you guys were killing it.
Thank you.
You guys were like tight, and every one of you and Neil.
Farnquist.
He is like
the salt of the earth,
man. He is such a great musician.
Yeah.
Like nothing but love for that guy.
Totally. Well, he's got in terms of timing, probably one of the best
meters. 100%
sense of timing out of any musician I've played with.
And like his sense of like just like playing, the way he puts his chords together, the way everything's resolved the way they should.
Yes.
His ability to just like have the catchiest groove. He's like
that's just it.
He's like Angus Young.
Yeah, Angus.
Super
of course.
Super
oh my gosh. Absolutely.
Because from a rhythm guitar player perspective, he just I don't know. You guys were definitely a motley looking bunch.
Yeah.
But like
that's a very good way of putting it.
But like the musicianship was
bunch of
unreal,
weird freaky looking. Yeah.
Right? Like Stacey Arbo on the drums is so linear, so like on the time. Yeah. Like he was a robot. He could hit everything. There was no faux pas anywhere. That's just straight, beautiful, clean.
Yeah.
It wasn't abstract in any way.
Yep.
But on a linear because you guys were playing linear music.
Yeah, exactly.
I felt like everything you guys were playing was kind of linear music.
Totally.
And you guys executed everything flawlessly. And like to a level in which no other musicians were really doing that, I should mention.
You're just the kindest guy.
I mean this seriously though. Like,
well, thank you.
Because when we look at it, like, oh my God, these guys are good. We gotta like be better than them.
That's
but
awesome.
It's like, no, we don't have to be better. We just have to play different music.
And that's just it. That's the thing.
And then because we were playing different music, it was like, high five to the No
course.
One's Alone camp.
Exactly.
Because we could totally coexist.
That's just
and there wasn't like this, fuck you guys and you guys and these guys. It was like, sweet, it's No One's Alone and Prevail at the time. And Bella was still playing, I think, back then, as a group. And like, I felt that there was like room for everybody because we all kind of like, you guys had your genre. You guys are like the more of like the, I don't know how you want to call it, but it was just like different. Like we were like the emo, like the Prevail boys were like the emo type.
Yeah, of course.
You guys were like the hard rock type.
Hard rock,
like straight. And Kaylee was just kind of like the blues, jazz, funk, and everything else in between. Exactly. Right. And I think Andrew was still a part of that at that time.
Yeah. And that's one thing too. Like Andrew, I remember Andrew Scott. I mean, that guy's a hell of a musician.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, again, I saw him first perform probably at Howlers. I don't know what he was playing. Maybe I saw him with you guys first. I'm not sure. It was one or the other.
Yeah.
But again, just a musician who had a sense of who he was artistically.
Yeah.
And so everything he played, everything he sang, covers. He played a lot of original music.
Yeah.
He was his writing, along with your guys' and Kaylee's.
Yeah.
It was very, very good.
Yeah.
Like it was apparent that you had all worked on it. And again, so to circle back on the No One's Alone thing, for me, when I started getting my toes into the music scene, that's where I was coming from. Like, okay, this is the level, this is the level that everyone is at. And so when I had my fair share of terrible playing and songwriting and just all that rudimentary, all the baby steps you take. And then connecting with Neil was the thing that I feel like that was when things really stepped up in terms of me being a performer and a writer and a person playing music. I'd played covers for years. And with Neil, again, he, AC/DC, Neil, AC/DC, Malcolm, Angus, and a lot of that kind of classic rock and hard rock music. That is his wheelhouse. And so when we connected, it was like, the overlap was huge. I was into a lot of heavy stuff as well, but where we overlapped was so much fun. And he's just he's such a fun guy as well. Just a very joyful,
super agreeable,
absolutely just
go with the flow kind of
dude. Yes, exactly. Right? So when we started jamming, that's what it was. We would play things that we knew. We would jam. I'll play this chorus, you play a solo, and we do that a whole bunch. And eventually we it got to the point where at some point we connected with Cadel at
So
Howlers.
yeah, how did that happen? Where did you meet him?
For sure. So let me check my camera real quick. I think that beep was the SD card about to fill up. So give me one sec.